our outgoing committee chair. Dave is our outgoing committee chair, and this would be his last meeting. I'll thank him for his service. We'll have to do that at a future time. But then our incoming chair, Brian, he is on vacation. So a lot of trips this month. So I'm kind of pinch hitting. There's a lot of moving pieces at this meeting. So I'm very thankful that we have with us Travis Muncie and Grace Dye from the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And you should have received some advanced information from them about their 60 by 30 goals, but I will let them dive in and go forward. So we'll listen to their presentation. Please, if you want to make any notes about questions that you have in the chat, and then we can make sure that we have plenty of time on the agenda to address any questions or conversation that you guys want to have. And then we'll go into the rest of the business part of the meeting. So Travis, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tara, and everyone on the committee, and thank you for the invitation. We always look forward to talking about post-secondary education, and especially the 60 by 30 goal. As I'm sure if you've ever heard anything from Dr. Thompson, he always says that's our North Star. So and then we all know how important education is as a precursor to the workforce, and so I think it's a perfect match. So just to get started, just to give you a idea of who we are. So my name is Travis Muncie. I'm the Executive Director of Data and Advanced Analytics at the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And with me, I brought Dr. Grace Dye, who is our lead researcher at the Council. And just to give some context and kind of set the scope for this presentation. So, we've had the 60 by 30 goal around for a while. It was originally around during our 2016 to 2021 post-secondary strategic agenda. And at that time, we've made a lot of progress. But what we really, I guess, didn't have from our initial models and our initial analysis was the ability to really get granular in our goal. And what I mean by that is to be able to get down to the county level, to gender, race, ethnicity, and to really be able to pull out those types of things so that we can set really, really specific goals. So when we brought Grace on board, that was one of our big objectives, was to really be able to not only look at 60 by 30 as an attainment goal for the entire state, but to also look, be able to look deeper and set more specific goals on, where, say, certain regions or counties are already doing well from the attainment perspective, or the post-secondary education attainment perspective, and where the work, should really be focused. And like I said, just to set the scope, just want to kind of go over kind of what 60 by 30 is, kind of how we track that, how we tracked it in the past, how we plan on tracking it in the future. And also talk to you all, based on the presentation, what you all would, to get your feedback, what's important from, the business community perspective, really where we should be focusing, on the post-secondary side. But just to get started, really quick, what is the 60 by 30 goal? So like I said, it was initially from our 2016 to 2021 agenda. It is the ambitious goal to have 60% of all Kentucky adults ages 25 to 64 with some sort of post-secondary credential by the year 2030. Just a quick overview of the goal itself, and then why is that important? And we just pulled out one of our and one of the studies that we used initially was from Georgetown University Center of Education, and basically Americans' economy is changing. A recent report by Georgetown University Center on Education and the Economy reveals that nearly all jobs created in the U.S. since the Great Recession, 11.5 out of 11.6 million, have gone to workers with at least some post-secondary education. And just saying that just to show the importance of education to the workforce. And Grace, if you want to go to the next slide. And like I said before, the focus of this presentation, when Tara reached out to us, we were very excited because we had started the work on our new models around 60 by 30, and this gave us a great use case. So what we did is we actually isolated Northern Kentucky as an area in the 8 counties in the LWA, and focused on those counties and the region. In our conversation with Tara really wanted us to pull out the urban counties from the rural counties of Northern Kentucky, and to do that analysis separately. But we also broke that down and did it at the 8 county level as well. But just a quick aside on the data set. So the data we used was from the American Community Survey, or the data we are using is from the American Community Survey. A couple assumptions: 50% of some college, and this is actually a common assumption, especially with the Lumina Foundation and other people that kind of do the attainment projections and work around educational attainment. As you know, in the ACS data, they don't have a specific spot for credential holders. So the common assumption is to take 50% of some college and assume that as credential holders. And we didn't include it in the graphs, but we will give it for context so that we can kind of add it. One of the other very common assumptions in this space is a 4% assumption on top of the percentage that accounts for industry certificates. So again, that's another space that's really hard to track. So the common assumption, and this is the assumption used by Lumina in their Stronger Nations work, is a 4% assumption on top of that. But then again, the model that we're going to show you, and kind of the projections that we're going to show you after 2019 are very preliminary. So this isn't indicative of what the final product is going to look like. We just wanted to put this together, so that it would be in context of your all's discussions, and really act as a foundation for discussions around possible KPIs, or wherever you all want to take the discussion after the presentation. But you are also welcome to speak up and ask questions during the presentation. That's very welcome. All right, so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Grace, and she's going to go over some of the modeling that she did around the Northern Kentucky area, and some of the I guess takeaways from the data. But as far as up to 2019, that's actual ACS data with the assumptions applied. Just wanted to give that note real quick. So Grace, if you want to take over.
Thank you, Travis. So as Travis mentioned, the industry certificate is also considered as educational attainment beyond high school. Since the data set does not include that type of credentials, so we use the reference of 4% assumption that most of other studies use. So with that being said, all the percent that you are going to see from all of those following graphs did not include that 4%. So we'll do some math together along the presentation when it's needed. All right. So first of all, we'll take a look at the educational attainment for Northern Kentucky as a whole. So we see that as of 2019, the rate of educational attainment beyond high school is about 51.87% for Northern Kentucky. So by adding that 4% assumption, it will be about 55.87%, right? So by comparing with the educational attainment rates in Kentucky and nationally, which is 45.4% and 47.4% respectively, without adding the 4% of industry certificate, we see that Northern Kentucky is doing a much better job here, all right? And additionally, Northern Kentucky is projected to reach the 60% goal in 2026 after adding the 4% industry certificate. So based on our preliminary analysis here, we can conclude that Northern Kentucky is on track to meet the attainment goal 60% even before 2030. And for Northern Kentucky as a whole, we also look at the percent of the population holding different credential levels. So first, the purple line here represents of the percent of population holding a bachelor's degree, and the red line represents the percent of the population holding certificate, post-secondary certificate or diploma. And then yellow line represents the percent of population holding a graduate or professional degree. And then last, the green line represents the percent of population holding an associate degree. So we see that the percent of the population holding a bachelor's degree is much higher in comparison to the other 3 credential levels. And the percent of a population holding bachelor's degree and then associate degree and graduate professional degree are projected to increase over the next 11 years, while the percent of people holding a certificate degree is projected to decrease over the next 11 years. Actually, just based on the existing data points, we see that the percent of the population holding certificate degree has started to decrease since 2016 and 17 already. All right, so that's the key findings for the Northern Kentucky. And now let's move to the urban area of the Northern Kentucky. And we see that as of 2019, the educational attainment rate is about 55.69%, and adding those 4% industry certificate, it's almost 60%, right? So we project that Northern Kentucky urban area is going to achieve their 60% goal in 2020 and 2021. So because the most recent year of the data from the American Community Survey is 2019. So once we have the 2020 and 2021 data, we will be able to see whether our projected numbers align with the real data points. But at this point, we see that Northern Kentucky is doing, urban areas doing a very good job reaching those goals. And when we look at the percent of a population holding different credential levels, urban Northern Kentucky actually shares a similar pattern as the Northern Kentucky as a whole. We see the percent of population holding a bachelor's degree is much higher in comparison to the other 3 credential levels. And the percent of population holding a bachelor's degree, associate degree, and graduate or professional degree are projected to increase over the next 11 years. But the percent of the population holding a certificate degree is projected to decrease over the next 11 years. And similar to the previous slide, actually the percent of population holding certificate degree, certificate or diploma has started to decrease since 2016 and 17. All right.
Can I give a quick caveat to that, Grace?
Mhm.
So we do also have to keep in mind that that certificate number is based on an assumption. So that could also be indicative of just the some college group itself shrinking. But either way, I mean, from a degree production standpoint, certificate and diplomas are growing faster than all the other degree levels. So that, this is based on just a linear trend. It absolutely could, once the data points are available, be reversed, or like I said, just indicative of that assumption. So just wanted to throw that caveat in there that, certificate and diplomas from a state level are growing much faster than the other degree levels, and, are pretty much the impetus of almost all post-secondary growth in the area.
This is Fernando Figueroa with Gateway Community Technical College. And so just for point of clarification, is this the people that are in the urban area or the Northern Kentucky area that have those credentials, or is it the production of our credential producing institutions? Because again, I could see how the urban area attracting a lot of people from outside of the area with bachelor's degrees because of the kind of, lifestyle and jobs there. And also the fact that we still, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the River City high schools are still averaging, their high school seniors are averaging about a 30 to 37% college going rate.
Absolutely, yeah. So this does not include any production. So this is just the basic projection of the ACS attainment data. And the certificate the certificates themselves, or I guess the count of certificates, is based on an assumption. So basically we're taking 50% of people who respond to the survey at some college. We're taking 50% of those as an assumption and assuming those as certificate holders. And that's very common in this area to do that as the basic assumption for certificates. But, you know, as far as production, and of course, there's a very close relationship between degree production and degree attainment. And that's what I'm saying is that those are kind of juxtaposed in the sense that, you know, certificates and diplomas are really carrying the growth of degree production. But in this scenario, we do see, you know, the falling when it comes to the American Community Survey of less people responding with some college. So, you know, there's probably a lot of ways to explain it. And we'll go into more detail at the end to kind of explain our next step as far as this model goes outside of just the basic projection. But 60 by 30, like you said, it can be a very, very complicated animal with a lot of different moving parts, you know, because you got in and out mobility, you got degree production, you got aging in out of the cohort, aging out of the cohort. You know, it can get super, super complicated really, really quick. But yeah, but I just wanted to throw that in there for some context, just so that you all know that, you know, from a post-secondary institution standpoint, KCTCS and the colleges within KCTCS are absolutely doing their job when it comes to conferring, you know, credentials, because they are basically the impetus of all degree growth.
And actually, when we talk about educational attainment, we refer to the highest level of education that an individual completed. So it doesn't mean that a bachelor's degree holder doesn't complete any post-secondary certificate before. So yeah. So that's all the key findings for the urban areas. And let's move to next slide for the rural Northern Kentucky. So we see that for the rural area in the Northern Kentucky, as of 2019, the overall educational attainment rate is only about 30%. By adding those 4% of industry certificate, it's about 34. And by 2030, and it's by adding those 4% of industry certificate, is about 36, which is still like 14 percentage points away from the 60%. And when we're looking at the percent of the population holding different education credential, so we see that the percent of the population holding a certificate is much higher in comparison to the other three credential levels in rural Northern Kentucky. And the percent of people holding associate degree, bachelor's degree are projected to increase, while the percent of people holding certificate degree is projected to decrease. And percent of population holding graduate professional degree is also projected to increase, but in a very slow rate, and remains kind of like flat for the next 10, 11 years. So next slide shows you some of the findings from the county level analysis. And this graph is very busy to read. So I split the graph into two graphs. So the first graph includes the three counties from the upper part of this graph, and the second graph will include the lower 5 counties.
And sorry, I just want to interrupt you really quick one more time. So I don't know if we mentioned it before, I know it was on the slide, but when we say the urban group, basically that's Campbell, Boone, and Kenton. And then the rural would be Grant, Pendleton, Gallatin, Carroll, and Owen. So I don't know if we explicitly said that. So just wanted to mention that real quick.
So as you can see that those upper 3 counties are Campbell, Boone, and Kenton. So they are all from the urban area of Northern Kentucky. And those lower 5 counties are all from the rural area of Northern Kentucky. So as I mentioned, I split this graph into 2 graphs. So we'll look at the those three counties from the urban area of Northern Kentucky first. So we see that actually by 2019, Campbell and also Bone has reached their 60% goal already. And we see that Kenton is going to reach their 60% goal in 2025 by adding those 4% industry certificate. So we see all of those three counties from the urban area of Northern Kentucky are doing a very good job. But for those 5 counties in the rural area of Northern Kentucky, we see that in 2019, none of them has achieved the 60% goal. And by 2030, none of them is going to achieve the 60% goal, even adding those 4% of industry certificate to the percent. So we see that actually Grant and Pendleton County have they are projected to increase at a very higher growth rate, and while Owen County is projected to decrease in some way. So, but those 5 counties in the rural area of Northern Kentucky, none of them is going to achieve the goal, especially in comparison to the other 3 counties from the urban Northern Kentucky. Yeah, so those are all the key findings from this analysis. And then Travis is going to talk a little bit more about the key takeaways from this study.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. And just to reiterate, this is a very preliminary, model. So it'll get much more complex going forward. Just wanted to kind of, do this work and do this modeling to give context to the conversation. But even looking at the already available data points, I think the story is similar whether we look at the projections or just the data points in general. It pretty much tells the same story. And now I can really see why Tara wanted us to pull out, the rural counties from the urban counties, because, it's kind of a tale of 2 different worlds. But just to go over the key takeaways real quick. So overall, the Northern Kentucky area as a whole, they actually look like they're on the path to meet the 20 by 30 goal. Not only that, as far as the actual data points up to 2019, Campbell County and Boone County have already met that goal based on our methods. And Kenton County is well on its way. Hopefully projected to meet that goal by 2025. As far as, the other end of the spectrum, with the real data points, it looks like Gallatin and Carroll we're both at the lowest attainment rates in 2019. But they are projected to get better. But that brings me back to my point, with the rural and urban divide. On average, the urban county group has an attainment of about 26 percentage points higher than the rural group in 2019. And that's based on actual data points. And we're projected that that'll actually increase to 31 percentage points by 2030. But then, the good news is that all counties within the urban group, are projected to meet the attainment goal. Yeah, so Grace, if you want to move on to the next slide. Yeah, so now I just want to open up for questions and discussions, and to kind of give you more context on what we plan on doing moving forward. Is, like mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we really want to be able to, put these data on a, some sort of outward facing dashboard, so that groups like your committee or, other stakeholders could have easy access to it, and to not just do it from the state level, but be able to do it from the region and county level. And even break it down, by gender, race, ethnicity, and get as granular as possible with these models. And that was kind of our big our big goal on top of the 60 by 30 goal is because we're moving into a new strategic agenda as well. So we're working on the 22 to 2030 Kentucky post-secondary strategic agenda now. And that was one of the asks from our executive leadership, was to be able to provide modeling, that does allow for us to really set specific goals in specific areas and even down to the county level. We are in the process of working on that dashboard now. I know Tara's seen it. So, as of now, it basically just maps the attainment by county based on this data set. But it also provides more context, or will provide more context as far as, an unduplicated count of undergraduate degree attainment, because we know, that's closer relationship to attainment. But there's much more that needs to be added. So, of course, even if we find the perfect relationship between attainment and overall educational attainment and credential attainment or credentialing, even if we find that perfect relationship, there's still a lot of variables that feed into even the degree, from everything from an overall volume metrics like how many high school students are actually entering in-state post-secondary education, how many of those are actually being retained and graduated, of more an efficiency metric. So that's very complicated. And then the overall population statistic stuff as far as in and out mobility. And I know that's a huge question, especially in Northern Kentucky, being right on the border. You have a lot of mobility between the Cincinnati area and then back into Northern Kentucky. So I guess the final goal is to try to pull all that together and to be able to really set on our side a credential or degree target of, where do we need these degrees, and what institutions serve that region and can provide those degrees, and that's kind of our end goal. But like I said, just adding context there. But now I'll shut up, and if you guys have any questions or want to start the discussion, please feel free.
Great, Travis, we really appreciate that extra context. We do have a couple of questions that have come up in the chat, so I'm just going to kind of go chronologically with those. They're all sort of around the same concept, which is, can you talk a little bit more about the projected decrease in educational attainment for some of our rural counties? I think the most dramatic one was projected for Owen County. And then as a little bit of a follow-up to that, can you talk a little bit about maybe how our rural counties are comparing to other rural counties elsewhere? So thanks to Vicki Burling for those questions. And then kind of similarly, let's talk about our urban counties compared to Lexington, Fayette, or Louisville, Jefferson. I'm going to stop there, but there's another question after that.
Okay, well, I'll actually take the second one first, Grace, and then if you want to, you can take the first one. It's similar. So, and after Grace answers, I can actually pull up, the preliminary version of the dashboard, and you can actually get a good representation of, what that looks like with other urban counties or other rural counties. But it's very similar. So that, that high 20 to low 30 percentile or percentages. It's very similar to rural counties in Eastern Kentucky and Western Kentucky. But once Grace, I guess answers the first question, I'll go ahead and bring that up and kind of show you guys what that looks like.
So to add to what Travis mentioned about, first, we want you all know that this is kind of like we have been working on the 60 by 30, but we are working on the state as a whole. We are working at the projections for different credential levels as a whole. We have finished all of those preliminary analysis, but for urban county analysis, projection analysis, and for county level analysis, so we just did this for Northern Kentucky at this point. We haven't checked with Western or Eastern Kentucky, but just per Tara's request, we just started doing the county level analysis for Northern Kentucky. So So regarding the question why the projection for Owen County is going to decrease, so we see that actually from the pre-existing data points from 2019 to from 2009 to 2019, it has decreased already. So the projection model numbers for 2020 to 2030 is based on existing data points. So the trend based on the existing data points has decreased already. So that's why the projected model, the projected line decreased as well. So I can't remember the other questions that you've gonna check the chat here.
And while you're looking, Grace, I can just give a really quick view of kind of how the rural counties in Northern Kentucky compare with other rural counties. So, you know, this is just the, I guess, the basic infrastructure of what we're going to do with this dashboard. But one thing it does do, it doesn't have the 2019 data points in it yet. So it only goes up to 2018. But what it does do is give you a good idea of kind of how, like you said, the rural counties in Northern Kentucky compare against the other, you know, rural counties in the state. And as you can see here, you know, we have Grant County at 31.4, Pendleton at 29.8, you know, Gallatin at 27.5, Owen at 28.2. And then, you know, just a quick look at some of the other rural counties. Say we go to Eastern Kentucky, you know, we've got Morgan County at 29.9, Menifee County at 29.4, Powell County at 32, Estill County at 24.9, Wolfe County at 24.4. So there's definitely some outliers, especially in Eastern Kentucky. But most rural counties in, you know, Eastern Kentucky and even Western Kentucky are in the same ballpark. So, you know, high 20, low 30 percentages. So, you know, the rural counties of Northern Kentucky are definitely not alone. You know, and kind of where they are in their educational attainment, you know, proportion.
If you went north of Morgan County and Menifee and looked at Rowan County, can you show that difference?
Yeah, so Rowan County is at 46.8%, but Rowan County also has Morehead State University in it. So I would say that would contribute a little bit.
Well, that's the reason I asked the question, because it seems to me the further distance you have from a university, so I assume that would hold true with Western, Eastern. You see what I'm saying? Like as you get further from a university, the likelihood that you're going to have a higher educational attainment kind of goes down. It sort of makes sense, but I just want to confirm that was the counties you specifically mentioned. I was very familiar with.
Yeah, and that, you know, I'm sure there's a correlation there, but then, you know, I think it probably also depends on, you know, what kind of maybe KCTCS college is in the area, because, you know, there are more of those, and they are in more rural areas, you know, so.
But it'd be interesting to overlay the map of post-secondary institutions.
Yeah.
With this information and data and get a feel for that. That's a really good point, Brent. How are you accounting right now for the differences between urban and rural? You know, is it, I mean, what are some of the factors that you guys are looking at in addition to?
So basically we just grouped them by county. So, you know, we had the 3 counties that are, I guess, you know, on the border of Cincinnati, so probably part of the Cincinnati metro, and then you know, the remaining 5 counties as rural. So not a particularly complicated methodology, but you know, that was kind of, with our discussion with Tara, you know, we kind of decided that was the best way to group the 2. Of course, you know, there's an infinite way you can group things. So you know, even if we pulled it out, you know, within the county, but then again, you know, we're also going to be limited by the data set, you know, how granular we can get with the data in these groupings. But to be honest with you, I mean, you know, I'm sure some of the, you know, if we look at population density and other factors, I'm sure probably the groupings probably would have remained the same. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not very familiar with the area, but you know, my assumption is that hopefully those groupings would be the same.
Well, and I'm also thinking, does it depend on the cluster of businesses that you have? Does it depend on whether you have active chambers and active economic development teams? Is it, the density of commerce? Is it the kinds of commerce that you have? I mean, if those rural areas are primarily agrarian, and focus on those elements, is that a driver in lack of post-secondary attainment? I mean, trying to get a feel for all the other factors that kind of come together, I think is going to be really important for us to understand how we put the different assets of the community together.
For sure.
Absolutely, completely agree.
So Travis, can you just remind us really quickly? I was looking at Brent's other question in the chat. Can you remind us who is getting counted in this? So is it somebody who is a Northern Kentucky resident, and how old are they? Can you just sort of walk us through that, what that data set is?
Absolutely, yeah. So it is northern residents of that county, adults aged 25 to 64. So of course, probably from a population statistic standpoint, probably the biggest mover of that is going to be aging in of the cohort and aging out of the cohort. And then, I would say that's good news in the sense that probably the people aging into the cohort are more likely to have a post-secondary credential than the adults moving out of the cohort. So that inherently, hopefully, will move that number up. But then, there's a lot of other different factors. But to specifically answer your question, so it's adults age 25 to 64 residents of the county.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And hopefully that kind of helps everybody think through who we're talking about. So one question that I have, as we think about reaching this goal, and Dr. Figueroa and I were kind of talking about why this goal exists yesterday. And maybe I'll call on him in just a second to kind of elaborate on some of because he had some nice things to say about, putting that in perspective. But, one of the things that's been on my mind a lot lately actually has been Owen County, and Dr. Stafford couldn't join us today, but he's on this committee. He's the superintendent of Owen County Schools. And we've been working a lot recently, along with the chamber and the education council and the co-op and other partners, on the work ready communities certifications. And we did that for Boone, Kent, and Campbell counties, and it was a little bit of a slam dunk, right? It was, hey, let's celebrate all of the things that we've been able to do because these communities already meet these various goals. And we were able to elaborate on, obviously there's plenty of work still to do, right? But we've also been working with some of the other counties, including Owen County, on their application. And it's certainly not as straightforward about how might we move that community, closer to achieving some of those goals. And so I was just curious, certainly a huge piece of meeting a goal is just stating it, right? And kind of putting it out there of, hey, this is where we want to get to. And that's where Dr. Figueroa can maybe comment on a second. But the other thing I would be interested in for the purposes of a committee like this is, what is it that we can do to help that community rally around a goal such as this, put it in the perspective of what would make sense for them, and to try to really make some headway. So anyway, just throwing that out there. I don't know if Dr. Figueroa, if you want to kind of mention what the point is of that.
Yeah, I mean, why the 60 by 30, and a lot of states have this kind of 60, 65, 55 by 55 and all that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Georgetown study that was initially mentioned, that, originally, and I heard this statistic about 5 years ago, actually 6 years ago now, that, 60 something % of jobs created would need a post-secondary credential. Now, I will say this, we may have to revisit that because the latest reports since 2008 has been the jobs since 2008 that have been created require a post-secondary credential, 80%. So the numbers are going up a lot, not down. And so then again, I think it's like we talked about a meaningful goal that gets us somewhere where it feels like we've made some progress, rather than just having a goal because it's a stretch or because it's something to hit. But that if we achieve it, then that is going to be something that we can see, a change that we can see that has value. And so as we look at the combination of the work between our businesses, our workforce investment boards, our colleges, universities, and all the other partners we have in education and training, and in healthcare, et cetera, how is it that what are the things that we should be doing on our waterfront to make sure that we're improving life in our community that then attracts more people to us, which gets more people with credentials to us?
Absolutely. And Tara, just to kind of, get back out, I guess specific to your question of, really what can be done in those areas that do have, low attainment like Owen County. And, I think it really starts with the college going rate, right? Because, Kentucky absolutely struggles with its college going rate. I don't think that that's really any secret, and it's actually going down. So the trend's going the wrong way. So maybe those early post-secondary experiences, I know Kentucky's doing a good job with dual credit and actually getting those students, more post-secondary experience before they even graduate high school. I think we have the right person on the call with Grace. She did most of our studies around dual credit. How much, those students are much more likely to attend a post-secondary institution after graduating. And maybe, at least part of the answer, or at least, part of the solution comes down to, increasing those post-secondary experiences and actually and increasing that college going rate so that we have more people in the pipeline, maybe at a Gateway Community College, to where they could get, because I think a lot of people think when we say post-secondary education, we're talking about just a baccalaureate degree or a master's degree or maybe even an associate's degree, but that's absolutely not the truth. I mean, I know there's, industry certificates are super important now, and you see that with Google and Amazon and a lot of the other big companies that are basically stepping in and doing it themselves, all the way to more of the certifications at the community colleges. And we really are at the council doing a lot of studies around that. We're working with, the University of Kentucky to do like a certificates of value study to actually, try to quantify the value of, those short-term certificates. I guess I didn't really specifically answer the question, but I think there's a lot of different paths that can be taken to help those counties increase their attainment rate.
Travis, I just want to say thanks for this. Big fan of Dr. Thompson, everything that's happening, and I just want to say thanks. It's extremely valuable data. The point I was making about proximity to the schools, I come from Eastern Kentucky. And like if you live in Fleming County, for example, pretty much anywhere in Fleming County, you're going to drive minimum of a half hour to 45 minutes to either go to Mason or to go to Round County's community college, one of those two. And that's a huge advantage that the metros have over those rurals. And so I do think looking at that data set and transportation, maybe figuring out if there's more coming out of COVID, maybe there's more virtual classes that we can figure this out for those rural. But I would wager, and it would be interesting to see, but I would wager that all of those counties that don't have a community college or don't have a major university close by, they're losing population. And I think so again, interesting overlay to take that, because it does this rural urban divide that we have politically, and it stems from a lot of this, I think. And I don't know the answer. I'm just posing the situation where we're at, and it does impact Grant, Gallatin, Owen, Pendleton, and we also include Bracken in the Cincinnati MSA. And so I always bring that up. I always would love to see Bracken included in these, because that is in the Cincinnati MSA, and that does impact our federal funding. And so anyway, I'll shut up now because I filibustered enough, but I wanted to share those thoughts with you.
Well, as you can probably tell by my accent, I'm also a fellow Eastern Kentucky. so I absolutely feel your pain. And I attended Moorhead State, and, I would drive, 40 miles to campus, and then, 40 miles the other way to work. So I absolutely feel the region's pain there. But I completely agree. I do think that, that probably does play a factor in the updated version of our dashboard. We may try to overlay, like you and Dr. Figueroa brought up, to overlay those service areas, you know, with an institution, so you can actually see how what the distance looks like, you know, between the institution and the area itself. But yeah, so I absolutely agree, and we'll absolutely try to get that integrated into the dashboard.
Are there any other questions or comments that we want to share? No?
I just want to say thank you, Tara, for bringing this to our attention.
Well, you are welcome. This is part of, as we kick off implementation of our strategic plan and thinking about how are we data driven? That's one of the 4 key elements of the strategic plan. And so I had heard about this goal, and I just thought this would be a really nice way for this committee. We'll be showing you the KPI in just a few minutes, but as we really think through what do these community indicators really mean about how you as a board are setting the policies that you're able to set with regard to, you know, how are we using our federal WIOA funding, that this would be a great place to start. So we really appreciate Travis and Grace joining us. I really look forward to seeing how the dashboard continues to develop. So keep us updated, please. I think it's a really great tool. And we will, we are intending to have their friends from KY Stats join us at a future meeting sometime soon. They actually offered to let KY Stats join them today, and I said, no, don't join, don't share the spotlight. Let's make sure that we give plenty of attention to this topic. So Travis and Grace, thank you so very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And if there is any way that we can get a copy of those slides, if they're shareable, we would love to have that. But I will let you guys know, and hopefully this is okay. We have been recording this, and we normally do post all of our meetings on Facebook after the fact. So if you ever did want to go back and watch, you can always do that.
Sounds great, and thanks for having us, Tara, and everyone on the committee. And we'll try to keep that link away from Dr. Thompson, because we'll know he'll just, you know, he'll go watch it and critique us.
Tell him he needs
Well,
to
you
come
guys-
up here so we can drink some bourbon.
Exactly, he's a man of his bourbon, that's for sure.
Well, you all are welcome to stay for the business part of the meeting, or you can step away and go back to your regular daily activities. But we really
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having us. Bye.
bye. Okay, I know we have someone who's got to leave.
Did we all lose her? Or is it just me?
No, we all,
And she keeps freezing.
yeah,
Okay.
so she might call back. I will check on her, like, she's on a big adventure this month, and so she had to find Wi-Fi this morning, so this afternoon for this meeting. So she most likely will call in. Let me see if she's gonna do that.
I can hear you guys now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry about that. I turned off my video, so it's like one less thing. We need to pass our minutes. Did you guys have a chance to look over those? We actually just sent them this morning. If anybody had any concerns about them, please let us know now.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you so much, Brent.
I'll second Fernando.
Thank you. Race to the second. I love it. Does anybody want to vote in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, you guys. Anybody opposed? Okay. And then I neglected, because I don't normally actually run these meetings, I just staff them. I was supposed to, it looks like that motion passed, so thanks. But we do need to confirm, does anyone need to establish any sort of conflict of interest regarding the nature of the action items at this meeting, which the only action item actually is approval of the minutes. Okay, let the record show no one had a conflict. Okay, so moving on to other items on the agenda, we will be having an update from Eric Owsley and then an update from Corey Eimer.
Thank you, Tara. I just wanted to provide a few slides. Were we able to? Here we go. Hope you move to the direct service slides. Corey, these are your slides. Did you want to go first?
David, could you progress to the next one for Eric? Is there another one?
There we go.
There we go.
Go to the thank you, David, so much. We have some new team members the past couple weeks. I want to introduce the board to Lauren Garrett. She's our new regional workforce strategies coordinator. Lauren is actually on this meeting today. So she is going to lead our business services team. Also, that means she'll become the rapid response coordinator to meet with those businesses and affected workers. And she will also specialize in the advanced manufacturing industry. So Lauren, comes from a wealth of experience and knowledge from the educational world, secondary and post-secondary, also nonprofit, as she worked for the Reds Community Fund, and then also some corporate experience as well. So Lauren has a great strategy brain about her. So we're really excited to have Lauren join the team, as well as Kim Spreader. She's our newest addition to the team, our business service representative. Kim has actually been with Brighton Center and our Kentucky Career Center team since 2019, but now, she used to be our talent development specialist, working more with job seekers at our Williamstown location, but now she's moving full-time business service rep. So she'll still be engaged with our rural business services, as well as the sectors of construction and trades and transportation, distribution, and logistics. So we congratulate both Lauren and Kim. Welcome to the team. Go to the next slide, David. We've had a strong quarter so far this fourth quarter. So just a few numbers for you. We've had 143 hiring events. We've had a lot of events with our in-demand career days. With COVID restrictions lifting, we're able to have some more hiring events. We've served 407 unique employers. So that's pretty big. That comes from lighter touch points with helping employers with, posting focused talent postings, also helping employers with, Facebook Live sessions and, introducing to talent pipelines. 407, we have a small and mighty team to work with these folks. We had a rapid response event in April with Presto Light. Presto Light had about 14 affected individuals. They're just closing their Boone County facility and just streamlining their work as they're up in New York. So we were able to come in with a virtual event and serve Presto Light, have a few employers at the event, as well as Kentucky Career Center partners, Office of Vocational Rehab, Brighton Center, and someone that talked about UI services. So we were able to serve those affected workers. We've had 377 interviews and 170 reported job placements. So once again, we finishing the fourth quarter strong with some good numbers. And then just wanted to talk about our 15th annual Veterans Career Cruise-In, which is going to be tomorrow. It's going to be from 9 to 12, and it will be at Gateway Community and Technical College Boone campus. So I know Dr. Figueroa is on the call today, so thank you for allowing us to use your facility for this event. This event is the first in-person signature job fair we've had since January of 2020. So we're all looking forward to this event. There's some great title sponsors with us. So we are seeing several employers step up and wanting to become sponsors. We have 14 in total. And this is representing 50 employers total with, of course, hundreds of opportunities. So We blasted this event. We promoted this event. If you all on this call today want to attend or spread the word, we love that. But we're all really excited about this event, and I know the business service team have been working real hard on the job fair committee, and we are going to continue to work on our job fairs to be in-person events, moving from virtual to in-person. So a lot of exciting things this quarter, and we're happy to serve our struggling employers during this time.
Hey, Eric, we've got a question in the chat. It looks like, we had quite a few interviews, but not as many job placements. Can you talk a little bit about what that difference reflects?
Absolutely. So, this has been part of an ongoing conversation and an ongoing challenge of reported job placements. So these 207 are reported job placements from employers telling us who they hired from our events. So a lot of times there's a kind of a gap in getting that information back as far as data collection. But also, we have several, and Corey's gonna, I know, talk about this in his operator update, but we have several individuals that are coming into the Career Center that might visit our tables, the employer tables, and check the opportunities. But at this time, they're still, their primary focus is receiving the unemployment benefits, and also looking at, not having childcare for another full-time opportunity. So we have about a little less than 10% of our calls and walk-ins at this time that are specifically coming in the career centers for employment assistance. Of course, that other 90%, while they are connecting on unemployment services, we're still steering the conversation towards what employment opportunities are available. So I hope that answers a little bit of that gap there.
Yes, thank you so much. Vicki, did you have any follow-up questions?
No, that was helpful. Thank you, Eric.
Great.
I
Anybody
just wanna
else have?
share, we're hearing
Yeah,
that statewide. Everything Eric just said, we're hearing, and it really doesn't matter what part of the state. We're hearing the same kind of thing. And we did meet with, the governor's office last week, along with Louisville and Lexington, to talk about the additional $300 and to talk about this problem of, look, a lot of people are showing up just to get the box checked, but they have no intention of working, or they're unable to work due to childcare, like was stated, or other circumstances. And so as a result, we've got a boatload of openings and not a lot of people to fill them. So just want to share that.
On kind of a positive note, we have seen some successes anecdotally of some companies that are really boosting up their job quality and offering some great incentives, and also eager more to hire different populations. We had a recent event with a company, GSI, and all 11 folks that walked in to the hiring event, all 11 got a job offer. So in these times, I think that sense of urgency, it's helping some the other way too.
Yeah, we definitely have to make businesses better businesses and get them to adapt quickly and change some of their benefit packages and compensation arrangements, and to be creative. And I think at the chamber, and I know Lisa's on this call through Grow, that's one of the strategies. At the same time, for those that need help, you want to provide it, but for those that don't, we need to get them back to work. And I think this is all part of the discussion. So very helpful, Eric. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Corey, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, and if I could just quickly add something to the conversation that we're just having, it's an age-old challenge, getting reliable data back from our employers and job seekers on whether or not that final job offer and acceptance was ever made. And, you know, part of the issue is the multiple layers of relationships that we have. Oftentimes the HR staff person from an employer will be the one that we're in most, you know, have the most contact with, and is oftentimes the one who attends our events, but they're not always the one who ultimately will extend the job offer or know that final status. Well, many times they do know the final status, but the communication back is oftentimes a big challenge. So I was really intrigued in hearing the presentation earlier during this meeting about the idea of the 4% sort of projection or you know, assumption. I would like to have more discussion about how we can have a reliable margin of error, and when it comes to, you know, what is reasonable to assume in terms of number of interviews that take place, and making that leap to number of job offers, even if we can't 100% confirm them based on communication from the job seeker or employer. I would just like to, at some point, dig more into that to see if we can do more in that area.
That's a cool idea.
All right, David, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. So I know I don't often talk about the number served during the Business Service Committee. Usually it's the Program Youth Committee where we talk about numbers served, but I thought that this is important for the BSC to know and understand as well, and try to get a picture of service provision of our Northern Kentucky network from the beginning of this calendar year. And so, as you can see on the slide, we've, for the most part, with the exception of March, have been pretty steadily increasing in terms of number of individuals served. And no doubt you notice the big jump from March to April. This coincides with the introduction of in-person unemployment assistance at our Career Center, which began on April 15th. And so the number that you see here reflects both phone calls and walk-in services provided. I will say I looked at all of the months, but more closely at May. And in May, 88% of our customers coming in the door were coming in for unemployment. 6% were job seekers, and the other 6% were in the other category, which may mean we connected them with emergency assistance services. Maybe they had problems with paying their utility bills. Maybe they needed another type of service, such as Goodwill or Job Corps or services from another partner. So I think this is important to kind of to see this data and be able to sort of break it down. You'll also be able to see that the number of in-person services provided has taken a substantial leap, which is good. We're able to engage with more people in an in-person, one-on-one basis, which, as Eric alluded to, we're always trying to reframe the conversation to, now that you are hopefully getting your unemployment situation resolved, how can we help you with your job search? How can we help you engage with more of employment services, whether it be directly connecting them with an employer or career training or what have you. And that's been difficult. And I think, Brent made an excellent point. The extra $300 a month, or I'm sorry, per unemployment check is somewhat of an issue. I won't say that that's the the main reason that people aren't going back to work, but it's a factor, no doubt. There are many reasons, including there's still, in many cases, lack of childcare options. And some people are frankly still concerned in terms of health risks. COVID is still here, even though it's gotten much better over the past few months. As we meet with individual families and understand that because of the situations that each family is in terms of making that decision whether or not to go back to work or whether or not to stay home and take care of their family, we can't really blame the family for making a decision that's in their family's financial best interest. But also it's encouraging to see that employers are taking steps. They're being creative when it comes to really taking a hard look at their job quality and making those strides forward. And in the end, even though that's probably, we don't want to have employers in this very difficult position that they're in. But one, I guess, positive byproduct, if you will, is the increased rate of job quality issues that are being raised and pushed forward. So I'm sorry, I said a little bit too much on that, but it's something that we're having conversations about almost on a daily basis. So I wanted to kind of share that and kind of peel the curtain back here with the BSC here today on that. Moving on, Discover KCC. You all have heard me talk about this event in the past. Our next Discover KCC, which as a reminder is an orientation to Kentucky Career Center's employer services. Our next one is going to be this Friday morning, the 18th at 9 o'clock. We're going to still do that virtually, so that will be via Zoom. And if all of the employers attend who are registered, this will be a record-breaking event. We had, as of 2 days ago, 31 employers who registered. And so I haven't seen the numbers here over the last couple of days, but that's exciting. And so I wanted to extend the invitation. If any of you would like to join that, please shoot me an email, let me know. I'd be happy to send you the Zoom link so that you can be a part of that. And then finally, thank you to Lisa Mulcahy for sharing this information with me. We got some really exciting exposure for our employer resource guide recently. We were highlighted as a suggested resource in Barnes-Denig's Kentucky Manufacturing Compensation Benefits and Benchmark Study. And it was kind of cool to see that one of two resources lifted up. One was the employer toolkit put forward by the Women's Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, and the other was our very own employer resource guide. So that was really exciting to see. And I actually had an example on the next slide of that. And many of you probably receive this resource from Barnes-Denig, but just wanted to lift that up to kind of share that success with you all. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is a brief director's update, and then we will have our Grow NKY update. And if anyone has any new business, feel free to be thinking about that. So this will be pretty quick, mostly because I am afraid that my bandwidth is going to stop. There are a lot of things going on. I did just want to remind everyone, I know as a board, you all voted to approve these items in the budget and from a policy standpoint, but just thinking about them in the context of employer services and business services, to be thinking about some of the offerings that are through the available through the WIB and through the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. So just as a reminder, we now have, starting July 1st, we will have incumbent worker training dollars available. So companies with existing employees, I believe they need to be in place for at least 6 months. are eligible to apply for training either for an individual employee or an entire group of employees up to $10,000. There is a required employer match that is on a scale depending on the size of the company. So the smallest companies, the match is only 10%. The largest companies, it's 50%. I am finalizing all of those nice details as we speak in terms of a fact sheet and packet that we will be sending out to everyone. But I am really excited about being able to complement some of the existing training sources that are out there, because I know that they are quite competitive. I've had that conversation with Kimberly Rossetti at Triad, who wasn't able to be here today, that, you know, it can be kind of hard for employers to be able to access some of those funds. So we certainly hope that this is just one more tool in the toolbox. We also are in the process of reviving, and you also voted for this in the budget, our on-the-job training program, or OJT, as it is often commonly referred. That is something that had not been in the budget for a number of years. I will just be really honest that the paperwork is quite outdated. And so we as a team are looking and just revamping and refreshing it. And so it is not quite so daunting for our employer partners to consider taking advantage. The idea is that if they hire someone who would be WIOA eligible, so a low income adult or a dislocated worker, that they would be able to receive up to 50% of the wages paid for through this program for a period of time, kind of dependent on the combination of the wage amount, but for a few months. So as they got that person trained on the job. So very exciting, and we certainly appreciate the support of the board as we think about ways to support our employers and the upskilling of the individuals in our region. And it's just a reminder, because I'm never going to stop talking about it. We have our youth work experience program. So Lisa's nodding. She hears me talk about it every single time we have a meeting. It has been a little challenging lately to get our youth candidates engaged. And so if anyone has outlets where you might be interacting with a young adult between the ages of 18 and 24 who might be eligible for this program, we can basically pay for an internship for them. From an employer standpoint, that means that we're paying someone to work for you up to $16 an hour, depending on the wage that would be similar to someone else in that company is making for a similar job. So you all voted earlier this year to make that a little more flexible with that up to $16 language. So that way it's not quite so prescriptive, and it can really be modified based on the needs of the particular employer. And then just as a quick reminder, it's actually administered in a different division of the Area Development District, but we do have the revolving loan fund, which has small business loans up to $100,000 for purchases of equipment, real estate, other capital expenses. So if there's ever a need in that regard, please let us know that as well. Did want to mention, along with the comments from Eric, Corey, Brent, and others, I have been getting a lot more calls recently from local employers being interested in the services of the Workforce Board and the Career Center, because as the workforce continues to be a challenge, I think employers are just looking out for every avenue that they can think of. We certainly are turning that sort of right back around and having conversations about making sure they're connected well with all of our Grow partner organizations, making sure that they're well connected in as a Career Center partner, et cetera. But I think as we think systematically about what that looks like, we certainly can't afford to leave anyone behind. So continuing to think about individuals who may be having barriers to employment. I do think this group would be a good one to think through, if there are other resources that you would like to hear from, if you want to hear, for example, from Sandy Woodall or others in the childcare space about, what really is going on in that sector, I'd be happy to bring them in, or any other guest speakers that you think would be helpful. Please let me know. I did want to say regarding the Veterans Cruise-In tomorrow, just a personal thank you to Dr. Figueroa and all of our friends at Gateway for hosting that event. There were some logistical challenges, unfortunately, with the location, and Gateway, per usual, came in and really was just a wonderful partner. So thank you very much for that. And then, speaking of the conversation earlier about credentials and degrees, we did, we don't always talk about the day-to-day logistics of this work, but I did just want to mention, because this one's an interesting one. We did have a logistical meeting earlier this week between our WIOA staff and the Workforce Solutions team at Gateway, because they are launching their apprenticeship program. And we really wanted to dive into the details about what does it look like to make sure that we're weaving all of our community resources together appropriately for individuals that might be interested in this program. For example, if we have an opportunity youth, right, someone under the age of 24, and they seem like a good candidate, how do we make sure we're getting them to Gateway? Or likewise, if Gateway receives somebody who might be eligible for WIOA, how do we make sure that we're using the right funds to pay for that person, to get them the best experience, to have the highest impact? Apprenticeship Academy. Yes, thank you. And so it's been, I think, more important than ever that we really make sure that all of those systems are really functioning at their utmost. And it was really great to have that conversation, and it really spurred a few additional things that I think that we can all do just to make sure that those handoffs work really, really well. So I did want to mention that. Hold on one second. There's some notes in the, oh, okay. Yeah, I saw those in the chat. So with that, I did just want to mention that if for those of you that signed up to be in the BSC subcommittee on data, I have not forgotten. I did pledge to our team that we would try not to take on anything completely, totally new in the month of June, because we had so many reports due to the state. Frankly, we just needed to make sure that we got all those taken care of. We have a new interlocal agreement between all of our local elected officials in all 8 counties that's happening, a biennial certification of every single thing that we've ever do for the board, and a number of things. So just so you guys know, that's all going well. And we also have state monitoring starting tomorrow. So yay. If you all do ever have any questions about those kinds of logistics, just please feel free to reach out to me, but not next week or the following, because I will be on vacation in the middle of the wilderness where no one will be able to find me. So on July 6th, I will be back in action and happy to meet with you one-on-one. I'd actually really love to catch up with everybody. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa Mulcahy for an update about GROW.
Let me make sure I turn my mute off. As long as we've been doing this, I still struggle with the mute button. But so today I'm just going to give everyone just a general update on that metrics subcommittee that is being led by Trisha Mahabir of Lumina Foundation and our regional talent hub. And also, I just want to give a big shout out to the metrics subcommittee that has agreed to work on this. Many of you serve on that committee, and I really appreciate the additional effort to really get us where we need to be around this work. So just to give you a little bit of background, when this started, what was the main purpose of the work and why? And really, it was for us to better understand the health of our ecosystem, our workforce ecosystem, and make sure that there was alignment between the supply and demand within that ecosystem. So recognizing the importance of the system of Grow Northern Kentucky, make sure that it's adaptive and also responsive. And I think we've all had a great test product through COVID. That's a great example of how we were able to be nimble and kind of navigate through the needs of COVID on a dime, really. So the focus is on the system to better understand the body of work, the gaps, the current state, and the vision of what we want to be as far as an ecosystem is concerned. And originally, you may recall, we were focusing in on those 5 focus areas, and we were really trying to elevate a population level outcome in each of those 5 areas. Since the work started with the subcommittee, the metric, we've really decided to work toward empowering, engaging, and elevating not only our job seekers and our community members, but also our businesses along the way. So instead of having 5 teams siloed into spaces, we are moving toward the 3 E's that I just mentioned of the system and identifying those top level metrics that support those E's and the health of the system. Are we empowering, engaging, and elevating? Understanding that this isn't just a linear continuum, but it's more of a hub and spoke system. And we need to understand that that web is critically important as we navigate through some of those metrics. So it's been really helpful meeting with the 5 focus areas of subject matter experts to really inform what should be measured, as it's more of a collective measure rather than an individual organizational measure. I think a big aha that's come of some of those meetings is that we need measures that support employers and not just the individuals. So we don't want to measure just workforce development, but also economic development. And that's why it's so nice with the GROW partnerships. We have over 75 partners at the table, and having our economic development partners at the table is so critically important, as well as our industry partners. Positive outcomes for workforce development should also be positive outcomes for economic development. So the timeline, basically, we presented to, or Trish presented to the steering committee back in January and has presented periodically throughout as she has sought to gather feedback, not only from steering committee for guidance, but also from each of those subject matter expert teams to the development of the metrics subcommittee. So with that, now we are in the process of meeting with each of those pillar areas and really looking to shed light on the overall structure and what we should be measuring. And what's next, the teams will all have a meeting with Trish by the end of June. And we've had a couple of meetings already. And the goal is to present to a high level of the metrics to the steering committee in July, and that date is July 8th, I believe. But really, it's not only just those high level metrics that we're seeking to present, but also the structure in general, how we intend for Grow Northern Kentucky to look. The comprehensive nature of the development of the focus areas, that will not likely change, just our metrics in general and how we focus. We want to make sure that we're nimble and we're able to transition as necessary. And the focus areas obviously are a key piece of that. And with that, that's my update. Happy to answer any questions though.
Lisa, that's so great. And I really do look forward to making sure that, you know, as we're redeveloping our KPI, that's an opportunity for us to really build upon what's happening. And I realized that I completely neglected to present that KPI. So we do have a couple minutes left in this meeting. Did anybody have any other questions for Lisa though? Otherwise we can have David pull that up and I can kind of walk you through that. Sorry, David, not to put you on the spot. There we go. Perfect. So David, do you just kind of want to remind, we have some new folks in the group, so maybe you can kind of remind everybody of what they're looking at with this document?
Yeah. So we produce this every month. This is pulled from NKWIB, which is a Salesforce-based platform at the Career Center in North Kentucky. So this is the aggregate of all the work of all the partners out of the various Northern Kentucky Career Centers. And I'll just go over it real quick in that it's in 3 parts. The first part is what we identified as our resources, advertised job postings for the month of May, labor market information, labor participation rate. Up in the top corner, we like to highlight the number of unique employers served, which we've broken 1,000. And this isn't the end of the fiscal year. There's still 1 more month to go. The middle part is what we call the activities, the actions that are done with the resources. Envision it like a funnel. This is employer outreach programs and activities done by the business service team out of the North Kentucky Career Centers. And as you can see, we've already exceeded last year's numbers in 3 out of the 5 sectors, and we're on the way. with IT business finance. Hopefully we'll get close. You know, things changed a lot in this last fiscal year. Like Eric was pointing out earlier, we've had 472 total job fairs and hiring events with 188 unique participating employers. That 188 is part of this 1,048. We've had 7 tours, which exceeded what we did last year. We've had 8 rapid response assistants. The bar graphs in the middle, this is where it gets a little bit wonky, but this points to what Corey was talking about. This is just in the door, what we used to call in the door, in-person on-site services at the KCC. Lots of this happened in the last couple of months because of COVID. We're definitely still, you know, close to the goal for individualized career services. Those are things that require enrollment in WIOA. And then career training, those are actually people who we've sent to training. It's a little bit low compared to last year, but you know, COVID. Youth work experience internships is on a good one. And then the bottom part is the outcomes. So we got the sorry, I lost my train of thought there. We have our resources, our actions, and then our outcomes. This part here shows like the state reported WIOA outcomes. This is just third quarter. It's not a rolling aggregate of the year. We do an annual compilation at the end of the year. There's a couple of hiccups third quarter, but we've had such a dynamic changing job seeker market, enrollments for WIOA. These will most likely be on goal by the end of the year when we have fourth quarter and do our annual average. What I really want to focus on real quick though, because this was brought up before, is that applicant interviews, we've doubled the number of people that we interviewed the previous fiscal year. And that's just through the massive amount of outreach from the Career Center staff, virtual job fairs. There's hiring events going on at CVG almost on a daily basis. One person up to 34 people showing up there. Job placements, we've exceeded job placements from the previous fiscal year. And I kind of want to piggyback on what Eric said, that those job placements are reported by the employers, by the businesses. So we don't really know if somebody's been hired unless the businesses report it back to us. Occasionally job seekers do report themselves, but not all the time. And then the job seeker and the employer satisfaction rates, those are pretty consistent throughout the year. We took a little bit of a dip in the job seeker rate by like 0.4% or something because people coming in for unemployment insurance, sometimes when they fill out our surveys, are not happy with the Career Center overall. And it only takes 1 or 2 people to kind of tank that number. So, and that's exactly what happened last month. I think we had 1 or 2 people that gave us a 1 and a 2 rating. So, but I'm more than happy to like answer any questions about these. You can always reach out to me, email, call me if you want more deep dives into this. But yeah, like I said, so, okay. And I just want to say real quick, just at the last month of the fiscal year, like I said, we were very much on track for what we've gone through this last year. So.
Right. Well, yeah, we're on track on the employer outreach for sure. I mean, I think just like we've been saying about being able to connect with on the job seeker side and be able to fill positions. Just so you guys know, as a committee, we have been lower than we would like on the individuals, you know, being served and keeping their jobs on the job seeker side of drug services. And so that's what you're seeing in the yellow and green bars. And we've been working very closely with Brighton Center to provide them with technical assistance in order to increase those numbers. So the yellow and the green bars are what we are, and I don't know if David, if there's a way to maybe zoom in so that those are a little bit bigger for a second. But so the yellow and the green bars are what we are measured on in terms of performance. For the last few years, we have actually been waived in terms of performance because of the state's key suite platform of reporting being new and then being flawed. But this year we are, regardless of the fact that key suite remains highly challenging to use, we are being measured in terms of performance. And so we're monitoring these very quickly. Regarding our rolling averages, we still are meeting our performance goals, but for the last quarter, unfortunately, we did not quite meet performance in a couple of categories, which we are, like I said, working very closely with Brighton Center to correct. And so those are those individuals entering employment on the adult worker side, and credential attained, and same for entering employment for the second quarter level for dislocated workers, and also for credentials attained. And so that is why you can see that we are below goal. And as I mentioned, I mean, happy to answer any questions, but we have, I just realized
Karen, I know we're at 3:30.
we have been working very, yeah.
I just had a quick question on the worker participation rate. If somebody can explain how the unemployment went down, but our workers' participation rate also went down. That kind of, did it go down? Is it just me, or does it, I thought it was 67 and now it's 66.
So those numbers are not as closely tied. I mean, they are tied, but you can, basically what a decrease in labor participation rate can mean is that someone is no longer seeking work. So you could have those individuals who are seeking work finding those jobs, and so therefore the unemployment rate goes down. But if you had more people either retiring or dropping out of the labor force for some other reason, then that can also lead the labor force participation rate to go down, sort of separately from unemployment rate going down.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Does that help? Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely.
We've been using this data, and it's extremely valuable to the Chamber of Commerce and to our members. So I just want to make sure I could regurgitate that information when the time comes. I also just wanted to say, as a follow-up to Lisa's report, that you're going to see us in Triad and Meet NKY and others talking about childcare, the importance of it, talking about the need for businesses to be better businesses, but also that pillar 4 focus area on talent attraction is going to get a lot of play over the coming months, because we don't have good childcare solutions. That's just my editorial. We need more childcare. It needs to be affordable. We're not incentivizing people to get back into the workforce. We're incentivizing people to stay home with their kids, which may be a good thing. But as a result, we're producing fewer kids because it's expensive to have kids and you can't work, and it's just a real challenge. And so we're producing 60,000 fewer kids, and we're competing against communities that are adding population, and we're losing. And so if we don't do that, that's why I thought your statement on DEI was really valuable from the WIB. And I thought, you're going to see that from Triad and the Chamber and Meet NKY all talking about the importance of being a welcoming community that embraces DEI, that is thinking long-term. And I just didn't want anybody to feel like that's taking away from all of the good work that's happening in the WIB. It's not all. We're still fighting for resources for our adult learning and our adult training. We're still fighting for childcare resources, but we feel like we're not doing anything where we needs to be on talent attraction. And so that piece I just wanted to share with you, since that's part of our workforce ecosystem at Grow.
Absolutely, Brent. Thank you for saying that. And yeah, I mean, we are this organization, the WIB, is equally responsible for serving our job seekers and our employers. So absolutely, we've got to figure out what the solution is for those employers to be able to find the work that they need, the talent that they need. Or unfortunately, I mean, the fact of the matter is we might not have those employers any longer for one reason or another. So yeah, no, we've got to figure that out. I know we are at time. If anyone had anything else that they needed to add, please let us know. And I'm just gonna wait just 1 second.
I just want to make one comment about Brent's question on labor force participation rate. That's going to go down most likely the next 5 to 10 years, no matter what we do, no matter how many jobs we create. It's a function of the population aging and people retiring. So they're going to fall out of the labor force even if we're creating jobs. So those probably will not be moving together over the next 5 years or so.
Thanks, Janet. That's really helpful.
Super helpful, Janet. Thank you for saying that. That's why I love this group. Well, our time is up. I need to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Brent, that's your cue.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for your patience. And I look forward to seeing all of you again in July. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.